All right. Fine, here we go. Parshas Boy. So it's a hemshach of Parshas Ve'ero. We know that there are 3 markets in Parshas Boy, and there were the first 7 markets in Parshas Ve'ero. There's a lot of rate on that, and I want to touch on it maybe a little bit, but let's start from the beginning of the Parsha and work our way through, work our way down. What's happening here? What's going on? So let's start slow with the beginning, literally one word at a time. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, Hashem says to Moshe, Boy al Parai, come to Parai, Kani hechbadati es liboy, because I hardened his heart, veslev avodav, and the heart of his servants, Laman shisi oisoisai ela bekirbai, because I will place my oisos, these specific oisos, bekirbai, within him. And the pasuk continues, pasuk beis, Laman tesaper bazne bincho ben binchais asher salalti b'mitzrayim, and so that you can tell over the story of what happened in the ears of your children and your grandchildren. Es asher es halalti b'mitzrayim. So what does his halalti mean? To Rashi says his halalti sachakti. He played with k'moiki his halalta bi. Pasuk in Sefer Bamidbar. Haloi kasher his oilel behem ha'omer b'mitzrayim. But it means a lashon of playing with, of playing. Almost like, I don't want to use the term abusing, but playing in a sense of Hashem was toying with them. Hashem was teasing them and treating them like a toy in the eyes of the Yidden. With the oisos that I placed within them, and they will know that I am Hashem. That's what Hashem says about what's going on over here. Moshe and Aaron come to Parva, and they say to him, so says Hashem, the God of the Ivrim, yeah? It says, until when? Are you going to refuse? Le'onos. So le'onos is a question what it means exactly. Le'onos could either mean a lashon of painting, or it means a lashon of answering. The Mefarshim go both ways. And till when are you going to refuse either responding to me or refusing to stop painting the hidden? Let my nation free, let my nation serve me. Obviously, the tachlis of Yitzis B'Tzrayim over here is Tavdanas Elikim al Harazeh, to go serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu by Har Sinai, which was Kabbalah Satira. I want to start with the Baal Turim over here. The Baal Turim says, So Rashi really says, "Vayomer Hashem l'Moshe boy al Parva hisra boy, give him a hasra." That's interesting. We're going to talk in a couple of minutes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't tell him which makkah he's bringing on him. He just says, "Go give him a hasra. Go warn him." And state that Moshe picked Arba, whatever that's supposed to mean. How Moshe knew? What Moshe knew? If we could ask this question, obviously Moshe knew, but the Mefarshim have a lot to talk on that specific nekuda. But go give him a hasra. It's a big question the Mefarshim grapple with over here. Is because he's a Ben Noach. Ben Noach doesn't have a hasra. What exactly the din of this hasra is? Okay, fine. We'll leave that for the Lamdanim. But Akapan the Baal Turim says by al Parai, when he would tell him to go to his house, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu would tell Moshe to go to Parai's house, to go to the palace, he would tell him boy. When he would go tell him when he would tell him to meet Parai when he's in the river, when he's in the Nile, in denial, he would tell him to go. So what's pshat in that? So Leich al Parai means go to Parai. Boy means, to meet. Leich means that you should go to him. Boy means that you should have a meeting with him. It's not bachavadik to talk. The Torah is not going to talk in a way that it's not bachavadik about Moshe Rabbeinu. So Shemi Shmuel brings a very interesting ha'ora. He brings him the Kotzker. He says, "Ki etel Hashem yisbarach ein shaykh lashon leich, ki meloich ha'la'aretz kevoidai." That he says, "Boil Parai, come to Parai." It's almost like HaKadosh Baruch Hu was giving his hand to Moshe Rabbeinu. It's like, "Come with me, let's go to Parai together." Why is he saying that? Because it's not shaykh to say leich by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? Because Malach al-Aretz Kavayde. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Malach al-Aretz Kavayde, so the whole entire world is under HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So then how's the Shaykh to say has a shaykh to say lech. You have to, it's bait, which means come with me, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving a very specific direction. So the first thing that came to mind when I saw it, it's very interessant, is a Polish Avart. I forgot it, it's Chudu Sherim or whoever it was. They said, where is HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Wherever you let him in, right? Parai Zecha, he says, Mi Hashem Hasheshma B'Koilei. The last thing that was on Parai's mind, the last thing that Parai wanted to give into, was the fact that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's running the world. Because Parai says, Liya Ori Vani Asisini, he says, I created the Or. He held himself to be the Avodah Zarah. He held himself to be Azam Min Sart creator. And everything was ran by him, and everything was meshubed by him. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling him time and time again that you're not in charge and I'm in charge. And what's very interesting is, because at the end of the 7th Makkah, at the end of the previous Makkah of Barad, they started seeing that Par is getting a little soft over here. He's not holding with his stubbornness so much anymore. Like, what's going on? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, he says, no. Don't think he's going to be so nice and sweet now all of a sudden. Fakart. I'm going to make his heart even harder. Meaning, I'm going to make him even more stubborn than he was before. Meaning, it was at the point where Paro was almost, there's only so much that you could panic a person. There's only so much that a person could handle, right? And even Paro, who was very, very stubborn and very, very tough, but he was ultimately was getting up to him, right? It reminds me, like the Gemara says by Eiv. The Satan comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Satan says, we have a grace of tzaddik in the land, and we have to, he's coming. The Satan was coming with specific kindness to other people. And Hashem says, did you meet the tzaddik Eiv yet? So Satan goes and starts making all kinds of tzaros for Eiv. So the Gemara says that I think it's in the Psukim in Eiv that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells the Satan that you could do whatever you want to him. Rakesh nafshecha shemor, you have to watch his nefesh, you have to keep Eiv intact. And you say that was a bigger nisayon for the Satan than it was for Eiv, because the Satan, his job is malcham avis, he just kills people, but they still keep him alive at the same time when he's going through all these stars, So Paro was going through terrible things, and it was destroying his ego. He's Leah Ori Vani Asisini. That's why the first Makkahs were in the Or, were in the river, because that's where Paro held that. That was the source of Shefa for Mitzrayim. So the Makkahs were targeting that source specifically. And that's the whole vart of what Paro was trying to do. And the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu was doing this, it's a very basic vart, and everyone talks about this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world by Asar Mamoros. There were 10 Mamoros, 10 sayings that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that created the world. And there were 10 Makkahs, and each one of the Makkahs is connected one of these 10 Mamoros. Not only that, but when we got to Tavdin Esalikim Alaharazeh, we were Zeicha to the Aseres Hadibris, and each one of these 10 correspond one to the other. So maybe we'll get to talk a little more about, which one of the Aseres Hadibris Arba would be connected. But for now, Akapanim, Paro was saying that nothing doing. I'm not going like this, and it wasn't coming from Paro himself. Could be Be'etzah Mitzad Paro, he would have given up already, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't allow him. Right? So the Rambam, different Rishonim learn differently, but the Rambam says that the reason for this is because a person can be chayte so much to the point where HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes away, part of his einish is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes away his koach of tshuva. Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes away his koach of tshuva, then he doesn't have a choice. He just keeps going deeper and deeper down that path, further and further away from the truth, further and further away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But then the pasuk goes weiter and says, Kani ichbarti es liboy ves leiv avodav. Who are the Avdei Paro? What are we talking about? Who are these people? What's Lev Avodav? So I was trying to figure out, do these people have names? Who are these Avodim? So I came across something interesting to see if I could pull it up over here. I came across something very interesting. Who are the Avodav? So the Megal HaMukah says, and without going through the whole long Torah that he says on this, but he says, "Kosav Megala Mukis Avodav Heim Yuchni Umamre Bnei Bilam." The children of Bilam, they were the Avodim of Paro. Meaning, Bilam, we remember, we spoke in the past, that Bilam was the one that said, get rid of the Jews, they're bad, they're going to harm you, they're going to destroy your country, Bilam was the one that said that you have to get rid of the Yidden. Now, if you think about it, it's very interesting. Bilam state was, those 49 days that Klal Yisrael was working from Yitzias Mitzrayim to Matan Torah. It says that Bilam worked for 50 days to go to the Hari HaChoshech to learn, give us a kishuv to be able to work against the Yidden. So if you think about it, obviously it's Zelu Umazeh. But coming to think of it, what's even more interesting is that the shirish of kishuv and the shirish of denying HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we're talking about in these parashas more specifically is very much the Koach of Para and the Koach of Mitzrayim, which were the Spitz kishuv machers of the Welt. So Bilam was coming from there as well. So he was coming pretty stark Zachen. Steht weiter in Rishonim that this Lev Avod of Lama'an, right, is Bilam, right? It's Lev Avod of, there's a ayin and a beis in Avodav and a lamed and a mem in Lama'an, because Bilam was the one that was miyayitz the para kol hara, all this bad, all these evil decrees against Yidden. And what's interessant is that Bilam himself gives the bracha to Klal Yisrael, and he says, "Ma tova elecha Yaakov mishkanesecha Yisrael," meaning that everything that Bilam wanted to do backfired, and that's good for what his bracha was to Klal Yisrael. Like the Gemara says, we know what his intentions, what his true intentions were, right? But what's the pasuk mean of Ma tova elecha Yaakov mishkanesecha Yisrael? Right, so we know from Chazal that when the Yidden were Mitzrayim, Melamed Shayu Yisrael Mitzayanim Sham, they stuck out. They were outstanding. What do you call a farmer? Someone who's outstanding in his field, right? So over here also, the Yidden were they stood out. They looked different. They acted different. They talked differently. Leishinu was Shemam, Leishinu was Mabusham, Leishinu was Lashainam. They didn't speak Lashon Hara. They didn't have the culture. To a large extent, they didn't have the culture that Paro was trying to get them into, and that's good for what Bilam was saying was Matovo Elecha Yaakov Mishkanesecha Yisrael. He's saying at Eidos from back in the day when he was geyser together with Paro to throw the children into the Nile River. He was when he made the Gzera together with Paro, and he saw how pure and how kadosh Klal Yisrael really was, because they didn't give into the Paro's Gzera at all, right? So that's Lev Avodav. So it is right about we mentioned in Parsha Shmos Vayakam Melech Chodesh Al Mitzrayim Shelo Yoda as Yosef. So we mentioned that they tried to overthrow Paro because the Avodim had an agenda. They wanted Paro to go with their agenda. Right, so I was thinking that maybe it's a similar Indian over here also, that the Avadim wanted to try to knock him out. Right, and we see the pasuk Vayter says in pasuk Zayin, it says Vayemru Avdei Parei Love. The Avdei Parei said to him, Ad Masa Yezon Zel Lonu L'Moikesh. Until when are you going to allow this to bother us, to pain us? Shlachas Hanashim Yavdus Hashem Le'ayim. Till when are you going to let these people bother us and destroy us? Let them go serve Hashem. Haterem Tedek Yav them Mitzrayim. Don't you realize that you're destroying Mitzrayim now? Right? So again, the Avadim of Paro in a certain sense are having a different agenda than what Paro has. We see that the Avadim wanted to send Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, and Paro was the one that says to keep them here. Right? So what was HaKadosh Baruch Hu doing over here? HaKadosh Baruch Hu was forcing Paro to not even listen to his own advisors. And it's like, no, we got to go start. Eventually, so what this means in a sense is that the Avdei Paro recognized what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was doing. And he's like, listen, wake up. You got to realize that this God of the Jews, this Elikei, he's really making us problems. You got to start listening to him, right? But they said no. But Paro said no. But eventually, but in Pasuk Hey, the Pasuk says, it's mashma, that Paro sort of listened to them, because Paro says, L'chu ivdus Hashem Elokeichem, go and serve Hashem your God, rak shal mivim yaholchem. But he had this mishagas, I'm not letting everyone go. I need to know specific people who are leaving. We're not letting everyone out. Specific people could leave. So again, there's like this internal sichsuch, this internal argument between Paro and his avodim about what's going on over here. Now, this would come out very interesting, Taka, if these were the children of Bilam. Because I'll be pashtus, the Bnei Bilam, these were bad guys, and they were trying very, very hard to not to be on Paro's team in the Keiches HaToma and to not allow them to go at all. Right? But on the tzad that they also said, oh, you know what, let's go. So that's why the pasuk says, Ki ani ichbadati es libai. Hashem says to Moshe, I hardened his heart, meaning Paro, as leiv avodav, and the heart of his servants. Meaning, because even if his servants would have a hava meaning to say, oh, it's okay to let the Jews go, at this point in time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, no, nothing doing. And this, meaning, so they're medayik weiter in the psukim that, you know, the avodim were the one that gave them this eitzah, you got to let them go a little bit. The avodim weren't sure, because like the avodim saw themselves that Mitzrayim is getting destroyed, but they had to be mechabed Paro's agenda as well. They couldn't throw Paro's agenda in the garbage. So what did they do? So they tried negotiating with him and to see how he would work it, to see what would happen. Okay, so that's as liboy v'eslev avodim. I got it so interesting. The leiv, we always refer to the leiv as being in the emtza, in the middle. So what are the two middle letters of Paro? Pei, Reish, Ayin, Hey. Reish, Ayin, Ra. The leiv of Paro is Be'etzem Ra. And the Pei and the Hey is Peh. So it's Peh Ra. Because Paro was the one that he said, oh yeah, you'll work for me a little bit. And then he started making all these kind of problems for the Eden. Right? And we spoke last week that the concept was that the Dibur was in Golos. So Paro is the Peh Ra that's, you know, making all these issues and making all these problems. The pasuk says, "Vaiter laman shisi oisei say ela bekirbai," that I will place, and I'm doing this because laman, I shall place my oiseis within them, bekirbai, within them. So it's very interesting. The Chesed Svarim say that this is referring to the oises. The three ISIS that Klal Yisrael have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the three, almost like a bris that Klal Yisrael has with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the three mitzvahs are Shabbos, Tefillin, and Milah. Bris Milah. And you always have to have two, right? On Shabbos we don't wear Tefillin, right? Tefillin and Shabbos are at the end of the parsha in this week's parsha. Agaponim. So, you know, there's a shaila. There's a concept in the Gemara of somebody shemesu achiv machmas milah, that they have a sickness that their blood doesn't, you know, that that if a child would have a bris, he would bleed out. So if two of the brothers died already from this, then the third brother they don't give a bris to. So the answer of Chaim Kanievsky does the third brother shemesu achiv machmas milah. There's a ganze nidin if he has to wear tefillin on Shabbos, because lemaisa he doesn't have the ois. Right, the Lamdanim handle this, but the Lamaisa, he's not. Is he considered an oral? Is he not considered an oral? It's a big shmuz. So that's Laman Shisi Oisei Sai Ela Bekirbai. So it's very interesting because Laman is Gematria Kates, which is referring to the Geula that Klal Yisrael is going to have by this week's parsha. Right, it's 190. Right, because B'schus these two Oisei, the Ois Milah and the Ois of Shabbos, they're going to have a Geula. Right, because the pasuk says by Shabbos, the Gemara says in Shabbos, that if Klal Yisrael is going to be shomer two Shabbos properly, they're going to be taken out of Mitzrayim. And the first Shabbos was the first Shabbos have to buy Mount Torah, and the second Shabbos was still waiting for that. Right, I rather saw last week in Chassan that Chassam Sofer has a whole nidin back and forth. You know, was Klal Yisrael Evdei Avodah were they not? It seems that because he brings the Gemara says that somebody who's Shem Shabbos, even if he's Eved Avodah Zarah Kedar Enosh, is Meichel Avodah. If a person does Avodah Zarah, but he's Shem Shabbos, right? So he says that's the flip side. Either a person's Eved Avodah Zarah or he's Shem Shabbos, right? So it says Lo Shamu Al Moshe Mikatz Ruach Me'Avodah Kadosh, because they were Isaac and Avodah Zarah. They were Shem Shabbos. So it seems like the way the Chassam Sofer explains it is that at a certain point in time, Paro broke them enough that Paro himself stopped allowing them to be Shomer Shabbos, and then they became bigger Ovdei Avodah Zarah, if you want to put it that way, and then and after that, after they became more Ovdei Avodah Zarah, they after they became more Ovdei Avodah Zarah, so then they were able to, then they weren't Shomer Shabbos anymore. All right, fine. Weiter, the pasuk says, "Leman tesaper b'oznei bincho ben bincho es asher salalti b'Mitzrayim." It's interessant. As Rashi says, "Sachakti, I played with them, and k'mayki salalta bi." It's interesting because the tzchaik, Yitzchak is lashon of tzchaik. Tzchaik also li'alikim. So b'schus Yitzchak they were yitzim Mitzrayim. So this is also based on that tzchaik. But what's interesting over here is that until this point in the Makkas, there's no mention of anything about what you're going to tell your children. We're just telling our children anything over here altogether. There's a mitzvah Sipri Mitzrayim, and that's later on in the parsha. We got it to Lebincha B'Mulemar, and the whole Kalamar B'Lasapri B'Tzias Mitzrayim Eretz Meshubach, right? But what is this? L'chaira, this is something separate. This l'chaira has nothing to do. L'chaira, this is something specific about Malkas Arba that you should tell your children, right? So Agrada saw, I think the sefer is called Eved HaMelech from Shmuel Hamaner's Alter Chalmi. I think he was lived like 40, 50 years ago. So they say a Maisa, they say a Uvda, that he would call all his children together, Parshas Boy, and he would tell them the story in great detail of everything they needed to know about the Arba, because the Maisa had a pasuk state, L'man tesaper b'oznei bincha ben bincha asher salalti b'Mitzrayim, as they say, shesamti bam. So he went to go be Mekayim that halacha, which is interesting, because the Maisa it's not gebracht. That's interessante aura. All right, so I want to get to something else over here. How's the minute? Let me pull it up. All right. The pasuk says, "Hineni mevi mocher arba b'gvulacha v'chisas ein haaretz v'layuchal liris es haaretz asher lo," and the pasuk goes on, "Asher lo yiro avisecha v'avis avisecha." It's interesting that there's a couple of times Riyah, so being able to see, and the ayin, the eye, that's the part of the body that we used to see, by the mark of Arba. Stamazai is so interesting ha'ara that there was a lot of cheshach by Arba, says the chisas ein haaretz. That when the Arba came, it created a tremendous amount of cheshach. So if you think about it, from Arba through cheshach and makas b'chayris, it was tremendous cheshach. So starting from the last three makas, it was all cheshach over there. So the question is, what exactly was the point of all the different cheshachs throughout? But I'll go upon it. That's the ha'ara. So I brought down interessanta ha'ara that the makas Arba is keneged le'signayv, right? Because each one of the 10 makas is going to be keneged the Aseres HaDibros. So in a sefer called Be'er Chai Mordechai, I think it was by English Heruv. I think he was very involved in helping Agunis after the war. I think he lived in Eretz Yisrael. I could check up exactly the details afterwards. But upon him, he says like this. He brings a Gemara Baba Kama Dav Ayin Tes. Why was the Torah more machmir by a Ganav than by a Gazlan? So just remember that a Ganav is somebody who steals at night and nobody's looking. He's a thief. He comes at night. A Gazlan, he brazenly walks over to you and grabs your wallet and runs away. Zok the Gemara, "Vaytes a hishvek kovid eved l'kvoid koinoi. V'zeh lo hishvek. Ki kaviyachol osa ayin shalmata kilu ein roya v'oizen shalmata kilu ein shema shenemar hoya hamamikim me Hashem listar etzo ksiv v'yom le'yira uksiv ki amro ozav Hashem es haaretz v'ayin Hashem roya." It's interessant just to explain what this Gemara means, that this person, this Ganav, so we know that a Ganav pays kefil, a Ganav pays double what he stole, and a Gazlan pays just for what he stole. So if a Ganav steals $100, when he pays back, he has to pay $200. A Gazlan only pays back $100. So the question is, why was the Torah more machmer on a Ganav than by a Gazlan? So the Gemara says, he equated and made equal the covet of the Eved, of the person, to the covet of the master. And the Gazlan didn't. Because a Gazlan, he did it in the open, he wasn't trying to hide from anybody. But a Ganav, he's trying to hide. Because a Ganav, he was also ayin shalmata kilu ein roya. He made it as if people wouldn't see him. Va'oizen shalmata kilu ein shemas. And he made it like the ear of people, kilu, like they don't hear, like they're trying to sneak around the people to try to steal, right? And it's a Gemara. The Gemara Brachis on the Chavches Amar Beis says that when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was leaving this world, says Talmidim asked him for Hadracha. So he says that you should have Meir Shemayim K'Meir Basav Adam. Said you should have Meir Shemayim K'Meir Basav Adam. You should fear heaven like you fear people. So they said, what kind of bracha is that? What kind of business is that? See, he says, Halavaya should be that afraid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like being afraid of people. Halavaya should be afraid of people that much. If you know that people are watching you, there's cameras everywhere. So it's going to deter people from committing crimes. Or the other 9, right? But you're not going to, if you know that you're going to get caught and you're going to run away, right? But you're being mashva, the ayin shalmata kilo ein roya. You're saying as if even people don't know. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees everything that's going on over here also. So the concept of what the Avos were bringing down into this world and what the avodah was to show everyone that Malay Chalaretz Kavoidai, and we're bringing the Shekhinah down into this world. And Paro didn't believe in that. He's Kaifa Be'ikr. And he said, Ozav Hashem es haaretz. He said, I'm not here anymore. I'm in charge. And the way Paro didn't just tell them, oh, guys, let me beat you up. No, he said it nicely, but Perach, like you said before, the Gemara says, Moshchum B'dvarim. And first he paid them until event, and Paro made believe like he needed them to really work for them, right? And then Paro all of a sudden becomes, Paro was very, very manipulative. Right? That's how the Yetzer Hara works, the way Paro works also, right? And it's very interesting because the pasuk says in Mishlei, "Ein melech la'arba." Arba doesn't have a king. There's a lot of Torah in this. I don't want to get into it now, but what's a pshat? Ein melech la'arba? Because if a person has a melech and he's makabel the ol malchus, so he's going to behave himself. He's going to be a good citizen. But if a person doesn't believe in the malchus, a person's married by malchus, or a person doesn't care about the melech, right? So then, what's the difference? So then he's just going to do whatever he wants because there's nothing stopping him. There's nothing on top of him. So he was also ayin shalmata kilu ein roya, right? And that's how Paro operated. And he says, "Mi Hashem Hashem b'koilot." So that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought him the makkah of Arba shakisas ein haaretz v'layuchal l'reis haaretz, that it covered over the entire land and he wasn't able to see the land. And also ate up everything that was left over from the borot, and they didn't have anything what to eat anymore. All the food was destroyed. Meaning whatever food was left over from the borot, the Arba took out. And the pasuk says, "Ki yignav l'malei nafshe ki yirav." A person can get to the point of starvation where he'll start stealing. And really, the reason why it happened like that is midah keneged midah, because of what Paro, the way Paro tricked everybody into it, and he made believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just like a Ganav makes it as if nobody sees him. That's why he goes at night, so nobody should catch him. So to Paro was working and very, very stark, and nobody should chap onto him. He's being very manipulative and very stark like that. Okay, interesting hara. Okay, so Anacha Ara is Asai. we find over here that the first, we mentioned in passing before, that the concept of the Arba was to bring out the concept of Sipri Tis Mitzrayim. And specifically, why specifically by the Arba? And not only to bring out the concept of Sipri Tis Mitzrayim, but the concept of Yigarat Lebincha, like the pasuk says, "L'man tesaper boznei bincho ben bincho es asher salal di b'Mitzrayim." So you tell your children and your grandchildren everything that Mitzrayim went through over here. And then Paro asks, "Mi v'mi ahalchem." So Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, "Binu reinu b'skenenu neilech b'vanenu b'vneisenu." Our young and our old are going to go, our sons and our daughters. Paro was asking to this, and he says, "He kain Hashem b'mochem kasher ashalach eschem v'stabchem." I'm going to send you and the children. And then he says, no, only the men could go. So, what's the pshat over here that we find the mitzvah of Sipri Mitzrayim is totally in the Mak of Arba? So, in order to fully understand this, there's Yerushalmi that says one of the types of Arba is called the Chasil, Ches Samach Yud Lamed. And Yerushalmi in Tainus says, Lama Nikra Shmoi Chasil. He destroys everything. That's another one. Goivai, some says lashon of gaiva. Do gabe dina demore. He's goivai as hadin, meaning he pays back from, he takes, Akash Baruch Hu uses goivai as to pay back as a din when it destroys the tvua. Meaning when Akash Baruch Hu comes to punish people, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will send the Arba to destroy them. It's interessant because the Gemara Bracha says that on something that's a min klala, you don't make a bracha on. So on the grasshoppers, right? The Mishnah there mentions the grasshoppers that you wouldn't make a bracha on because it's a min klala. Chazal bring a whole list of very, very interesting things about the Arba. Shloisha also dvarim nemru ba'arba. There are 13 things that are said about the Arba. Piv sosum. Its mouth is closed. Its mouth is closed because if its mouth would be open, no bria would be able to stand in front of it. The spit can kill and could cause them to rot, the people to rot. So that the other Medrash says is also that just like when they came into Eretz Yisrael, there was the tzira. The tzira was a kind of wasp. The Gemara Saita explains the way that it would blind a person and also be masaris him. It would destroy his reproductive system. By the Kinanim, when they were coming into Eretz Yisrael, there was a tzira. V'gamas atzira shalach, right? So that's why Paro says, "Vayasam me'alayis hamav," says, "Remove the death from me." Right? There's another vart, very bavusta vart, that they say why he says. Why is he referring to it as hamavis hazeh? So, it says that of all the makkahs, Paro didn't say hamavis hazeh. So why is Paro saying dafka to hamavis hazeh? So Paro is saying because the Arba didn't want to eat the things on Shabbos. The Arba doesn't work on Shabbos. So Paro says, from a makkah, that's really going to take me out. That's really going to kill me. I don't know. From a makkah, I'm not going to deal with. But there's a more of a chassidish vart over here. V'yosem re'alayis hamavis hazeh. That we know that tzedakah tatzil mimaves. We know that the person gives tzedakah, it gives him schusim to live. Right? So it says, v'chisas ein ha'aretz. So if you take an ayin and put it in the maves, so then it becomes ma'os, it becomes money, right? And that's the money that you're going to give to tzedakah. But if you take out the ayin, right, because it was chisa as ein ha'aretz, so then you're left with vayasam e'alayas hamaves hazeh. Then all you're left with is this maves. Shina of barzel, its teeth are made out of barzel. Shenemar shina of shinei aryeh, right? The pasuk by Yoel. So there's a whole story in Yoel that Yoel gave a nevuah that Arba is going to come and destroy everything also. So was the Makkah of Arba by Yoel worse than Mitzrayim? Was it better than Mitzrayim? What was it exactly? It's a whole shmooze. The Ramban already talks about it. Everyone's talking about the Maisa with Yoel. It causes tremendous destruction. Karn of diamond la Karn Hashar, Knaf of diamonds la Kanfi Nesher, Kap of diamonds la Aryeh, Ein of diamonds la Egel, Tzavar diamond la Tzavar Hasus. The horns of the Arba could be compared to the horn of a shor. The wings of the Arba are like the wings of an eagle. Its hands are similar to a lion. its eyes are similar to egel. Tzavaroi daimel tzavar hasus, liboi daimel leiv adam, gabai daimel gav hadog, on and on, the whole thing over here. So Cheral Pipashas, that's not the Arba that we ever pictured. It's not anything that really we could wrap our heads around in the picture. So what's going on over here? So in Perik Shira, Chasil Oimer, Hashem Alekai Ata, Aremimcha, Oida Shimcha, Kiesisa Pella, Eitzes Merachik, Amuna Uman. This pasuk is from the Nevuah of Yeshaya on the Geula Asida, and what's interesting is that the Arba that we saw from this Medrash is so destructive that it does, it causes destruction of higher levels than anything else. So what's the pshat that it's referring to the Geula Asida? And Rashi says, Eitzes merachik amuna uman, or Eitzes sheyatza merachik la'avram b'bris ben absarim. It's going back to those eitzes that you gave a long time ago to the bris ben absarim. So why is Rashi referring to the bris ben absarim as eitzes merachik? Right? So the pashtus is, that was the first time that there was a haftacha on the Geula that Klal Yisrael is going to have at the end of the Galus. Because by the Bris Ben Absar Kosh Baruch Hu is megal himself to Avraham Avinu, that in the future he's going to take Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. They're going to go into Galus, but they're also going to come out. So that's why B'shas the Geula, there's going to be Amunas Uman, a very, very strong Amunah, the haftacha of the Geula that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is maftech for the Bris Ben Absarim. That's the Eitzah Merachik. Because at the beginning of the creation of Klal Yisrael, they had a haftacha that they're going to come out of this. And the Radak says, Kiosisa, the Radak says, Imanu Pella Davar Nifla Be'inenu Ki L'kachtonu Mi Bein HaGoyim. The Radak says it's a Davar Pella that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take us out of the Goyim. Shahayinu Nivzarim Beinayim, we were spread all around, V'ayvdam Lahem, and we were Meshubah to them. V'ayid Achri Kibbutz Golia She'eskab to Oleinu Goy Gomagik, V'amim Rabin She'itze Yapilim Al Hari Yisrael Kulam. And all the nations are going to gang up against Klal Yisrael, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to destroy all of them. It's going to be tremendous pella. So that's Kiosisa. That's Kiosisa pella. And Eitzais merachik amuna uman ha'eitzais she'amarta mizman rachik al yedei neviyaches kaimu kim chazak. Says even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu is maftiach b'Avraham Avinu and the Nevi'im from so long ago, Aval Pikein, all those nevuos are going to come true, and they're going to be mekuyim. Yeah. So let's get into this. To explain weiter, the pasuk says Melech ein la Arba. There's no king to the Arba. V'yetze chaytzitz kulay. The Metzuda says Melech ein la Arba lanhigam yachad basifa achas kederech hamelech. They don't have anybody to hold them together like a melech does. V'im kol zeh. And with this, boicher me'atzman, the truths in themselves, lotzes yachad basifa achas. They decide to come together with one asifa of le'yifredu eila me'ela. And they're all going to always stay together, meaning that they decide on their own that they're going to come together. And the emek is that they're understanding that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the melech. That's what the pasuk says in that HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They have an inherent understanding and recognition that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one in charge. Right? Like the pasuk says in Yoel, Ha'arba ha'yalak v'chasil v'ha'gazam cheli ha'gadol she'shilachti b'chem. So it's mavur that the Arba is called the chayalim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, cheli ha'gadol, my great army. Right? So now we can understand why specifically the Arba's Shira, in Perik Shira, is dafka the kiyum of Bris Ben Absarim. Because by the Nevuah of Bris Ben Absarim, we find the concept of that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that all the neshamas from all the different generations, all together, mitchila v'atzayif, meaning the Bris Ben Absarim was a nevuah that spanned the entirety of time, of the existence of Klal Yisrael. And there was no other nevuah like that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling somebody that, because each nevuah was talking about a specific time, a specific tkufa. Masha'en came by the Bris Ben Absarim. The Bris Ben Absarim was kailal everything until the Geula Asida, every single tzara of every single point in time. Being that the Bris Ben Absarim was something that included, so inclusive, so the Arba also has that kind of inclusivity, and I'm going to explain what this means in a second. The point is that even without a melech, they come in such army, they come in such an organized fashion. So that's how they speak about the klalios of the Amun of Klal Yisrael, because the entire shleimus of the mahalach of Klal Yisrael going through the Guls, coming into becoming Nig'olim, when they know in the Gullus that there's hope that there's going to be a Geula. So then, going into Gullus, we know that we're going to get out of it, so then it's much easier for us to understand. It's much easier for us to, if we always keep in mind that we're going to get out of this mess one day, so then it makes it a lot easier for us. And that's a pshat of the pasuk that Hashem Elokai atare mimcha. Hashem, you raised me up. Oide shimcha, I'll praise you. Ki asisa pella eitzes merachik amuna uma. Now it makes a lot more sense to say that you made a pella, that the old nevuas are all coming true. I mean, not that anybody had any sveikas about the nevuas b'shas ma'isa. We're just like, when are they going to happen? When are they going to happen? They're going to happen lost at lover. So now we could understand why we're seeing that the concept is Lamanta Saber Bazne Bincha Ben Bincha Sasher Salal to Bim. Where does the mitzvah of CPTs time come specifically by the Arba? So the Daskenu Bali Taisva says that the Torah never tells us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him that we're going to bring Arba. So the Bali Taisva say like this: Moshe Hechiada. How did Moshe know? We don't find that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him the Makah of Arba. L'chein Nirali the Haven Moshe Hamaka. Moshe understood this on his own. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, Lamanta Saper, V'derechu l'saper al makas ha'arba. The derech of people is to talk about Arba. Sha'arei gam b'makas Arba, the Yoel, kaisev ksiva leha, l'vnechem saperu. It says by the story with Yoel that the Arba came, it says that, meaning the Metzias is that when Arba comes around, people talk about it for a very long time afterwards. So that's going to give the koyach of the continuity, specifically by Arba, and specifically by something that has a continuum of from the Bris Ben Absarim biz the Gula Asida. And I just want to end off with one very quick ha'ara. The Radal, I don't know where this Radal is, but he brings a Gemara in Shabbos Tafsadi Amud Beis that said that a chog of chai, a live grasshopper, yesh mishum isra haitzah afilu b'mashu. It's also to carry it out, even though we normally say chai nay says atzmai, but by a chog of chai there's the isra of haitzah, even a mashu, even if it's very small, because the children play with it. Umemelo yiskayim mitzvah sipri tis v'tzrayim al yidei arba. Therefore, could be mekayim the mitzvah sipri tis v'tzrayim through the arba. The hainu, that the fathers will tell their children, Ru'u, the reason why the children would play with Arba to begin with was that they should be able to have something to hold on to remember Yitzias B'Tzrayim. I thought that was a very fascinating part. And just one last thing to end off is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was maftiach, Etna brisi beini beinecha v'arba ischa b'ma'od ma'od. Yitzchak is gematria Arba, and after the Akedah, that's when the Kayach of Hilada was given over to Yitzchak. So that's when there was a Hamshacha of the Neshamas in a much darker way, because now Kivarech Avarechacha v'Arba Arba as a Rachik Kikoich v'Yashamayim Kachor l'Shar Svas Hayam. So Memela, there's the Kiyum of the Bris Ben Absarim is Dafka in the Tevas Arba, because Arba isn't just the Makav Arba, but it's also the Riboy, it's also the great growth of Klal Yisrael, the great growth of the Klal Yisrael, the front of the Gullus. There was a Riboy Dafka because Kashiyanu Aisam Ken Yirba V'chein Yefreitz. And I want to be myself that's also the Pshat Nesa Shar Salalti B'Mitzrayim, because his halalti is a lashon of Tzchak, Rashi says. So it's dafka through Yitzchak, because of Yitzchak, and because Arba is also gematria Yitzchak. Ad Nacht.